Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. This is Mary Coffey, and I have here my guest, Nico Martins, traveling all the way from Houston, Texas. So I wanted to share with you a device, I guess we can call this, or a beautiful artwork, if you will. It's not just art, but it has a really profound meaning to me. For anyone that has visited my practice, I was introduced to this by a dear friend of mine, Amelia. And it was when I went to her house and I felt peace, right? I felt harmony. And so much so that I actually also bought the device or this beautiful piece of work and introduced it to my practice. So we wanted to talk a little bit today about why and what it does. And today's topic is going to be kind of focused on 5G. Right, and the negative effects of the electromagnetic frequency fields that we're exposed to now, right, with the increased risk of cancer, depression. So if you want to kind of talk a little bit about how you became introduced to this device as well, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I used to be an electromechanical engineer, right? I didn't believe in spirituality and subtle energy. I didn't believe in any of it until in 2012, my mother passed away through euthanasia in Belgium. And, I had a really rough time after that. But then I started to notice she was appearing in my dreams. And, I was receiving, I could feel her, and I was getting all these thoughts. And one day I thought, what if this is not just my imagination, but my mother is trying to reach out to me? A few months later, I met my first mentor who had never met my mother because my mother had always lived in Belgium. And I would have lunch with my mentor every 2 weeks. And she was born like what we call a natural channel, having communication, with the other realms of existence. And we would have lunch every 2 weeks. Like my mother was sitting at the table. So she would pass on messages. And there's no way she could have known it. So for me, that really confirmed, like I wasn't going crazy.
Right.
And then fast forward. So I had this whole spiritual awakening. And being a scientist, learning about spirituality and all those concepts, it was actually able to answer everything that mainstream science never had an answer for me. And then fast forward years later, I met the inventor in Belgium through all these weird coincidences, synchronicities. And I went to his lectures. And what really drew me to the Cosmic Tower was that it wasn't just about protecting yourself and your home and your family, but it was also about regenerating nature, supporting nature again, because we are a part of nature. My lungs have an intimate relationship with the trees. Right. So we have inner organs and then trees, plants, and all that, they're outer organs. So I would question people like, your inner organs might be doing well. You're eating all the right things. How are your outer organs doing? So I was really excited about it. And I told the inventor, I want to do something for the mother we all have in common, Mother Earth and nature. So, yes, we started importing them into the United States to where we are building this grid that takes care of EMF and 5G from a much more holistic point of view.
Yeah, so you had brought on a good point. Earlier we had a conversation and it was about 5G. And for those biohackers, right, you guys know about the Faraday bags and everyone thinks they can just block this 5G, but you really can't block it, right? So if you want to kind of go into that concept so that we can really appreciate how this works.
Yeah, and I'm going to do it in a nutshell. There's much that goes into it, right? There's an entire science in and of by itself. But most people, when they look at 5G or EMF, they're looking at the electromagnetic spectrum. And they use EMF meters to measure the strength. Now, unfortunately, an EMF meter cannot tell you anything about the quality of the energy. You can have a healing device or a radiation weapon, and they might have the same strength. One has the ability to support you in your healing, and the other will kill you, right? So they only look at the electromagnetic spectrum, but there's a very important secondary effect that is not taken into account. So the electromagnetic spectrum, you can use a Faraday cage and you can block it, right? But there's also an other aspect of this. you cannot block with a Faraday cage. And the best example I can give you is when you see a boat go through the water, first you have the big wave. Think of that as the electromagnetic spectrum. But then there's all these ripples, and they just linger for a long time, and they spread far and wide. That's like the secondary effect of EMF that we call electrosmog, but it's not electromagnetic in nature. That's why we get all these people that say, I got everything wired in my home, I got Faraday cages set up, but I'm still having symptoms, right? Because the EMF meter cannot pick up on these subtle energy disturbances that disturb not only our physicality, but more importantly, our mental and our emotional plane, and that have all these detrimental benefits. Think of it as an inaudible sound that's always in the background, and it's like death metal. You cannot hear it, but your cells are listening to it 24/7, and it disturbs all biological functions, but more importantly, it also disturbs our mental and our emotional planes.
That's interesting. Because you think about all these people that like just want to, that live in like Texas, right? Dallas, it's big with 5G. And you had these shields on your bed, and you get these little pyramid shields. I don't know if that harmonizes or not. I'm not sure about those different things, but then you can kind of talk a little bit about how this and how the cosmic tower has the ability, or proven ability even, to harmonize the cells in your body, as well as harmonize the water, for instance. Like, has that been tested, like to see the surface area of the water to see if it's been harmonized?
Absolutely. So the electromagnetic spectrum in the world of our senses is only less than 2% of creation, right? There's the faster of light realms that we call the subtle realms, which is the energy, it's the emotional plane, it's the mental plane, it's the spiritual plane. And that actually shapes what we consider to be the physical world and the electromagnetic world. And it's kind of like most people know about the conscious and the subconscious mind. And by now they know that just changing your thoughts doesn't change your life. You have to rewire your programming at a deeper level.
Right.
This is the same. In order for us to have true solutions in the electromagnetic and the physical realm, we have to go in the subtle realm. Like you have the iceberg, right? What science considers to be all of reality at the Big Bang is what you see above the water.
Right.
What really shapes us is what's below water, the 98% that science completely ignores. So the problem with that is we make decisions based only on the electromagnetic spectrum. So we're creating all these side effects because the rest is not considered true. So that's why we get in this mess, like with the EMF. But the beauty of it also is, like, when we start tapping into the 98%, the subtle realms, we can totally affect this realm. And we can really have true and lasting change.
Yeah, so true and lasting. So if you can give us an example of how we can tap into that 98%.
Yeah, absolutely. There's entire sciences that are built around this, and these are ancient sciences. Look at the Egyptians and their temples. They were not just places of worship. They would actually find what we call the natural power spots in nature. And many people might know about these, like in Sedona, the vortexes, right? So there is these spots in nature that have the ability to harmonize the environment. So, for example, I spent the last 3 winters in Egypt, studying what is called biogeometry, which is one of those subtle sciences that takes everything into account and allows you to measure also all the subtle planes with different tools, right? Not with like EMF meters and stuff, but with different tools. And we're able to tap into the subtle realms, and we measure the quality. So rather than asking how strong is the field, we ask, how does this affect human beings and living organisms? So the temples were built on these sacred power spots to really spread that energy, to amplify and spread it through their society. That's why they were so much more advanced. Obviously, if you look at the pyramids, for example, right?
Yeah.
And they would build with nature and on those spots to harmonize the energies,
Right.
this really works based on the same principle. So it's like,
Oh, really?
yeah, it's like a
Oh, wow.
portable power spot, right? That has the same benefits when you go to Sedona or whatever,
Yeah.
you sit in the vortex, you feel good, you feel energized. You know, your ability to meditate and to connect to these more subtle planes, it becomes much more easy
Right.
because you're sitting in that harmonized energy. Well, this is exactly the same, but a modern version to where we've made it portable, but it works on the same principles as what creates these sacred power spots in nature.
So based on today's science, like as an engineer,
Yeah.
would it have been possible to even build a pyramid like that?
No, absolutely not. My friend in Egypt, who's an Egyptologist, I was like, say it.
Yeah.
Be real with me.
Yeah.
2.4 million blocks of 40 tons, you know, they weren't pushed and put with that precision by slaves, right? He's like, Nico, I know it's impossible because they would have had to put a block every 3 or 4 minutes. Right? So, and then he even talked about how in Japan they try to reproduce it at a much smaller scale and they couldn't make it work. So he says, but I have to tell you the official version or else I lose my license as an Egyptologist.
So what's the real version then?
I don't know, to be honest, how it was built, but what is very clear based on the precision, and I'm an engineer, I'm very practical, like this was a highly advanced civilization.
Yes.
So you could, for example, you can levitate big rocks. You find the right frequency, you know, you can levitate rocks. And they've actually shown this in science now at a much smaller, where they make a little ball like levitate with sound. But that shows us a principle. That means it's also possible at a much larger scale, right? Because the principle is the same. So they definitely had abilities to levitate rocks and move them. And then also, if you see how they're carved with that precision, it wasn't chiseled, right? If you go in like the King's Chamber, which I spent a lot of time in, the perfection of it. So I think they were using types of lasers, but based on sound, to really get these perfect blocks and these perfect shapes. So they had much higher science. Now, the funny thing is about higher science and higher technology, the higher it gets, the less it looks like what we consider technology. It's with wires sticking out and electricity. So this is really bringing this ancient science that we've kind of forgotten about, bringing that back and then put it in a new form that fits in our society.
So what do you think happened to that society?
What happened to it? Like, I cannot tell you for sure, but I just think humans kind of, you know, got in their ego and we fell from this higher conscious state into a much lower state of being, right? Where we no longer consider ourselves an integral part of nature. I always say we don't live on Mother Earth. Mother Earth is a living being. We live in her atmosphere. We're connected to all of nature. They understood that and they didn't build on the land, they built with nature.
Okay.
Because there's this thing called life force that science completely ignores, but it's what makes planets, entire galaxies spin around each other. It's what powers the trees and everything. And when we as a civilization learn to first acknowledge that again and to tap into it, all the issues we're facing in our world right now could be transformed rapidly. And that's what excites me.
Wow. I know we got really deep here, but I wanted to also talk about what's inside these towers.
Yes.
A lot of people ask that. They're like, oh, is it a piece of art? I'm like, no. So if you want to kind of dive into how they chose, you know, the engineering behind
Absolutely. So let's go back to the sacred power spots in nature for a minute. What creates those sacred power spots is underground water crossings.
water crossings.
Of like primal water that's like 10,000 years or older, and that's healing living water, right? So this actually works in that same principle. So within the cosmic tower, there's a vessel of water here, and there is one here.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't contain tap water. It contains water from healing springs, and your audience might know about the fourth phase of water, Dr. Gerald Pollack, that living water in our body is very different, you know, from the water we get from the tap. So what the inventor did, he went in Europe to a lady that had a collection of over 600 samples of healing waters. And what they did is they measured the light frequencies that are contained within the water. And then they found two of them that they could put together to where you have the full light spectrum available in the water. And he would call it the rainbow water. Mm-hmm. So a full spectrum healing water.
Okay.
Right? And then that gets basically put in the bottom and in the top vessel. Mm-hmm. And then it gets activated. There's a crystal in the center. Mm-hmm. And then it gets activated to where the bottom one starts spinning counterclockwise. Mm-hmm. And not like it's moving like this in the vessel, but on a subatomic, what the Russians would call torsion fields. You know, it's basically the subatomic spin of things.
Okay. And
then in the top, that's actually programmed, activated to go clockwise. Okay. And this creates a toroidal field. Mm-hmm. I'm sure your audience is familiar with the toroidal field. Everything in our known universe, from the electron all the way up to the universe itself, is this toroidal, like donut shape. Mm-hmm. Right? Also the human energy field, Earth's magnetic field, you always see this toroid come back, this shape. So once that is activated, it becomes like a sacred power spot, mm-hmm. to where it has many of the different qualities you would experience at a power spot. And also because this toroidal field is started, mm-hmm. that connects it all the way to like the higher realms, mm-hmm. of being, to the higher dimensions. And there's a continuous throughput of energy into the field, mm-hmm. right? Which then people have benefits from. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, like, people will ask me, does it heal this? Does it heal that? I was like, it doesn't heal anything. It creates a harmonized environment, and your body already knows what to do. Mm-hmm. When we create the inner and outer environment for life to thrive, the intelligence is already in our bodies. Mm-hmm. So the body is able to heal itself. Right. We have to just provide the right environment, allowing it to do it.
Right. So it's removing the imbalances, or whatever's causing the imbalances.
Yes, but also it creates a field of life force. To where a lot of that biological life force is intelligent, right. Of this intelligent energy is available, because that's what runs the show. Right. So consider yourself, we're also made of water, right. Of the structured water I was talking about, right. Of this fourth phase water. So our bio battery is in the water, mm-hmm. is in the structure, mm-hmm. right? So when we have a lot of energy, a lot of charge in our battery, mm-hmm. our bodies have the energy to focus on healing, right. You know, and, right. and to basically to heal itself. Mm-hmm. And that's what we provide. Simply a harmonized energy environment, mm-hmm. full of life force, mm-hmm. that then gives you an outer and an inner environment to allow the body to do what it already knows. Mm-hmm.
Kind of recap is the fact that there are so many, there's so many different modalities, mm-hmm. of healing, right? Yes. So people are now asking themselves, like, they're starting to trust themselves. Yes. Like, something's off, something's not, yeah. right, you know, and their traditional allopathic practitioners don't know how to answer them because they're just not trained. Yes. Right. So what are they doing? They're going on YouTube, they're searching. And mm-hmm. now we have this overabundance of biohackers, right? Yep. And people are just flooding and flocking. And now we have all these other devices that do this and do that. And now you have people that have the cold plunge, the red light, the H2, you name it, right? I have a lot of these toys. But like, I guess my purpose for this podcast is to understand really what we're trying to achieve in our true healing as a human, is to provide and to achieve harmony. Yes. Right? But also to understand, you know, our power as an individual. Absolutely. With just our mere power of intention, yes. But power of thoughts, yeah. Right? And that's what I wanted you to talk just a little bit about as yeah. we, you know, go to our closing recap. Yeah. First of all, I'm not a big fan of the term biohacking. Mm-hmm. I see it more as like, we don't have to hack nature. We have to align, right. with the intelligence that is already right. there, right? And just like with hypnosis, I'm a trained hypnotist. When
you really need to change the subconscious mind to have any lasting change.
Right.
Again, it's that part that most of us are not aware of. Most of us are aware of thoughts, which is the conscious mind. It's only a small percentage. But for example, the unconscious, the subconscious mind communicates through feelings. Right? So you can do affirmations all day. I deserve this. I deserve this. But if there's a yucky feeling that comes up, no, you don't. You don't deserve that. You know, that is ultimately what's going to drive your reality. And then all these affirmations just becomes more tension in your system. So we want to clear the subconscious mind or limiting beliefs, the things that are holding us back that we might not even be aware of, that often were imprinted or programmed in us at a young age. So we're still running an OS, an operating system from when we were 2 or 3 years old. That's not useful anymore now. So we have to actually change that. And only then will we see lasting change. Right. When you clear one feeling, 1,000 thoughts will go with it. You cannot resolve these things in the mind because it's our thinking we are separate, our thinking that we are not good enough that all started it in the first place. Right. And then the subconscious mind just put it on autopilot. Right. So we have to turn the autopilot off. Right. And do a software upgrade and said, I know you did this to keep me safe when I was a child, but now it's like blocking me. So we have to rewrite that. And it's the same with the reality we are in. It's the same thing. Consider with the 2% what science considers to be reality, like the conscious mind. But what really drives is the unconscious, the subtle realm, the faster than light realm. And that's where we make the real true changes, because this life force that I talked about, it flows all the way from the spiritual down, in a sense, into the physical. So if you want to make the most impactful change, like in a river, do you go to the mouth of where the river goes into the ocean, or do you go back to as close to the source as you can? Right? So we have to make our changes like closer to the source in the subtle plane. Right. And then we have the ability to reshape our physical plane and make it harmonized again to where life can thrive. Yeah. I love that. I love that. So, and that's kind of our philosophy here, is really getting to the root cause of illness. Right. And why and when it all started. Right. What are our limiting beliefs, and knowing that we can remove them. Yes. But with the Cosmic Tower, we found that it harmonizes not just our environment, but even our thoughts. Right. So it people feel more peace, more balance. Yes. I know I have. And it just kind of removes the things that no longer serve and brings the people in that are supposed to be there. That I do find happens. Yeah. And I do want to add to that, because a lot of people are focused on the physical, rightfully so, but 5G and EMFs have profound impact on our mental state of being, our emotional state of being, that people might not even make the correlation, right? We've seen this in Switzerland, for example, where studies were done where they had a lot of issues in this particular town, and they noticed nervousness, anxiety, depression, not being able to fall asleep, aggression, all these things that are mental and emotional were actually caused by the 5G, by the antennas, and by the EMF, because it disrupts not only our physical plane, but also our most subtle planes, our mental, emotional, and our energetic, our vitality plane, right? So a lot of people, the doctors will say, oh, that's just psychosomatic. Absolutely not. If you're suffering from that and you have a hard time sleeping or brain fog, oh yeah, those are all direct results from our man-made technology. Right. Yeah. So how can they find the Cosmic Tower? Yeah, it's on thewellnessenterprise.com. And I know that for a lot of people, this might be overwhelming, because we really have to start acknowledging those subtle realms again. So if you go to thewellnessenterprise.com, you can also subscribe to our newsletter. And every first Tuesday of the month, we have at 3 p.m. Eastern, we have a Zoom community call where I will answer any questions. We have many YouTube videos and many testimonials, and you can see about some of the measurements that are done on the website. But this community call is not just about the Cosmic Tower, but also educating people about the importance of the subtle realms And then I'm an engineer. I want to make things practical.
Right.
Right. I do love to understand the science, but if it's not practical for you to change your life, I don't see much benefit. So we also like to make it practical and give people tools to really start balancing these subtle planes, which profoundly shifts your life. It happened to me and so many people of the community. But more importantly, we can become stewards again for nature instead of cannibalizing nature.
Right.
You know, thinking we are separate and we just extract. It's time for us to give back.
Yes.
We all have the same great mother, which is Mother Earth. We all have that in common. Let's be kind to her again and support her versus destroy nature, which will ultimately destroy us.
Well, that's a great way to end this. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time. So this was very eye-opening for me, and stay tuned for more podcasts like this. We look forward to seeing you guys again soon.